Okay, we're live.
Good evening. It's 6 o'clock. This public informational meeting is hereby called to order. I'm your presiding officer, Larry Kraft, the school district moderator. As stipulated in the warrant for this meeting and the notice for this meeting, we are here to discuss the school's energy efficiency proposal for vote on December 8th. In addition to attending in person, we have interested parties who are also participating by Zoom, and SAPA TV is filming the proceedings. If needed, Robert's Rules of Order will govern the meeting. No action may take place at this meeting. It is for information only. It is a public information meeting, not a town meeting, so everyone, not just registered voters, is permitted to speak. After presentation by the school district, we will entertain questions and comments. When that time comes, please wait to be recognized. Please state your name clearly, and please limit your remarks only to the matter at hand, which is the article on the bond. In the interest of fairness, everyone who wants to speak will have the opportunity to do so before I recognize a speaker for the second time. We're going to begin our informational meeting with a presentation from the school district. I will turn it over to our superintendent, Zach McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr. Kraft. Tonight, before we get into the actual presentation, I just want to make sure people are familiar with kind of the technology we're using and how they can actively participate. So tonight we're using a program called StreamYard, which allows us to stream this video with the people that you see here. We have some people who are coming remotely from their homes, their offices, and we have a few people who are at Park Street School right now. And so for people who are watching us live, you're either watching via Facebook or YouTube. The district's Facebook page has a live stream happening right now. And also you can go to, and this is available on our website, the superintendent's, my professional YouTube page, where you can also view there as well. Over the course of the evening, the way in which you can ask questions is you actually plug those questions into the comment box underneath the live stream on Facebook. And if you go to YouTube, off to the side on YouTube, there's a chat window as well where you can put in questions. We'll then pull up those questions for people to see and then give some of these people here an opportunity to give you the information that you need. So before we get into a video presentation as part of introducing what the bond is all about, I'd like the people who are on with us and the folks at Park Street who are part of the team that will do some of the presenting to introduce themselves. So on my screen, I think we'll start with Adam. So who are you and what's your role in this conversation?
I'm Adam Lenitzo. I'm with Banwell Architects, and we've been working with EEI to develop some of the architectural scope to this project.
Great, thanks, Adam. Steve?
Hey, I'm Steve Cohn. I'm principal at Riverside Middle School. Good evening.
Steve Carafa.
How about the other Steve now?
Oh, sorry.
One. Steve Carafa, school board.
Thanks, Steve. Bindi?
Bindi Hathorn, principal of Springfield High School. Good evening.
Patty?
Hi, Patty Kaplan, school board.
Mike?
Mike Griffin with the school board.
Troy?
Troy Palmer, school board chair.
And Rick, how about you start the cascade of people who are over there with you at Park Street?
Rick Pembroke, I'm the chief financial officer for the district, and I'll turn around to Mike.
Mike Davey, a project manager with EEI that completed the energy audit.
And then, of course, Larry Kraft, who's the town moderator, who just started us off. So as we get into tonight's session, like I said, we have a short video presentation to help explain the project a bit, and then a few slides from some of the folks here to talk about some other details that aren't part of the video, and then we'll get into your questions for folks. And again, all of this, while being live, is also being recorded and will be available on Facebook and YouTube after tonight's session. So, so without any further ado, I'll get us to our introductory video. Sorry, just a second. Almost there.
Watch this on. Was it already on YouTube?
And if folks could do the best you can to mute, because that will affect the ability for folks to hear the audio. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mindy Hathorn. I'm the principal of Springfield High School. I'm here to talk about renovation project, or the proposed renovation project on the high school, which will include windows and a new ventilation system. And I just want to talk about how important this is for our building. The new ventilation system will be able to provide the proper ventilation that we need and air circulation. We'll also be able to update the filters that we have. Currently, we can only use a size 11. With the new ventilation system, we'll be able to use a size 13, which obviously more particles and is able to filter the air better so that it makes it cleaner for our staff, students, and families and other community members to breathe.
My name is Tim Bixby, the maintenance supervisor for Springfield School District. And, I want to touch base on some of the problems we have that's being proposed to be repaired to the barn. Starting at the high school, we have unit ventilators in all of our classrooms that are 1967 vintage. Right now, they're all pneumatic control, which all of the controls in the units are not operating properly. The outside air dampeners have lost all their weather stripping, and therefore what we call for outside air, we are bringing in a lot more air than needed.
So the ventilation system is also important because the pipes are also extremely old.
Piping that constantly leak and very costly to replace.
And when they were put in originally with this building, we've had a lot of expanding and contracting over the years, and that has caused leaks.
We're doing away with the Victolic seals and having the pipes welded.
A lot of the systems have also, ventilation systems, we've had glycol leaks. Glycol is part of the system. And the glycol itself doesn't smell, but there's an additive that they add and it smells and it's extremely strong. We've had several leaks throughout the years and we've had to move classrooms, which obviously disrupts where the teacher is able to utilize their resources in their space, and then trying to find a space for the students to be able to hold class has been a difficulty over the years. The windows are also original to the building, minus the ones that have been replaced due to damage throughout the years. And these windows are obviously extremely old. There's a lot of drafts in them as well. Students that sit too close to those windows feel that draft during classes. And anybody that's really close to those windows obviously would have to be wearing a coat or bundling up with extra clothing so that they are comfortable to be in the room to learn. You know, we have teachers and students that are using computers, their hands start to get really cold and freeze, and it's hard to be able to type and do what you need to do or write.
The frames are rusting out, the seals are gone, and the metal paneling underneath the windows to every classroom is not insulated. There are times where we have actually seen frost on the inside panels of the classroom because they're not insulated.
We also need updates on our heating system. We have several classrooms that are way too hot or way too cold, very few that are in the middle. We have students that have to wear their coats, their mittens, their hats when they're in some classes. And then we have other classes where kids are like barely, you know, they can wear a t-shirt and their pants and they're fine, but they're still hot. Which all of these factor into students being able to be motivated, participate in their learning, stay awake, or be able to just, you know, move around the classroom and do what they need to do.
Right now with the units we have in the classrooms, if it gets to be 10 degrees and below, we have a hard time heating these classrooms much over 65 degrees, which is not good.
I've spent a lot of time listening to
from being a counselor to being the principal, of teachers and kids' complaints of having different climate zones in our building. We can be in one building, in one space in this building, it's 95 degrees, another space, it's 55 degrees, and kids are coming to me complaining or upset, or teachers, and the best answer I can give them is jog in place to stay warm.
We are looking at the windows at Riverside Middle School, which are a single pane glass that is not energy efficient at all. We also, on the structural steel that separates the windows, are not insulated. Therefore, we're losing a lot of heat. We're also looking to upgrade the boiler room, going from oil boilers to LP propane boilers. Much more efficient, a lot less maintenance. The piping in the boiler room will be all replaced for the LP boilers, along with replacing hot water heaters to LP also. Be a lot more efficient. They will be replacing all the pumps on the heating systems. So therefore, I think we have like 8 pumps now. We will reduce that, which will be quite an energy savings.
In terms of a school building, those things are important in terms of us having a conducive environment for learning. When it's cold, it's really hard for teachers and kids to focus.
The electrical system totally through the whole building is in real bad shape.
It's just the inability to run our different technology and things we need in the classrooms, from science labs to the technology of 2020.
All the classrooms, you have to turn the lights on with an actual breaker, not a light switch, what they call bullnose breakers. When them breakers do go bad, they are hard to find to get them replaced. Some of the electrical system, the problems we've had, even some of the grounds and neutrals have been found to be live with power to the neutral and power to the ground. So a very dangerous type situation.
75% of our windows were cracked. If you were to walk through here, you would see many of them that are shattered or kept together by tape, and that's a safety issue.
The glass bridge is a single pane glass, very unsafe. It has cracks in some of them now, but it's a safety issue if one of them glasses were to break. It's a bridge. There's people that walk in under that. It's just an accident waiting to happen.
Hi, I'm Dr. Zach McLaughlin, Superintendent of Schools here in Springfield. One of the things I had to learn as an educational leader was the importance of facilities and what we try to deliver to our students. As a classroom teacher, I understood a lot about instruction and about those types of things, but there's a lot of nuance in facilities and what happens with facilities. But the reality in our school district is that there's not a lot of nuance between our buildings. When you go into our elementary schools, you see buildings that we're proud of. 21st century facilities that we will hold up against any other facilities in the state. But when you go to our high school and you go here to our middle school, you're transported back in time to the 50s and the 60s. And that has some aesthetic impact on what you see, but it also has impact on our operations and on what we're able to deliver to students, to teachers, and to families. So we're about to enter a period where we're reconsidering what we need to do with our buildings. And the school board has talked extensively about the need to take a step forward into the 21st century with both the high school and the middle school. And that comes at a time where it's cheap for us to do the borrowing to do these types of projects. And that's important because we don't want to do these piecemeal. We want to be thoughtful. We want to have everything work together in a seamless way. And that only happens when you do large-scale projects, all done at the same time with a lot of thought behind it. And that's what we're in a position to do. A thoughtful, inexpensive project that benefit all the members of our district school community. And so I hope that you're able to, as a member of the community, see this important moment and put us in a position to give us all what we want for our kids.
So this proposition was first brought to the school board at a $15 million price tag. Through hard work of the consultants and both the board, we've gotten this proposal down to around $10 million. The bond project that we're suggesting will be asking for $9 million to be borrowed against. That's important because last time we went out for a bond rate 2009, the interest rates were 4.21%. Current interest rates are 2.17%, which means if we borrow the money now with those lower interest rates, we're going to save the community in town $2 million. That's a large savings for us not to pass by with the interest rates being so low as they are now. What does this mean for the community tax rate? The tax rate will go up by 0.0146 cents of a dollar. So 1.5 cents for over $9 million of improvements to the schools that are going to carry us through the next 30 years. It's important that the community is involved in this decision and that everyone comes out and votes when the warrant is presented in December. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Patty Kemp, and I'm on the school board in Springfield. And I stand behind this bond for our schools. It's a great educational place for all of our students, plus we help serve the community.
Hi, I'm Janice Garfield, a longtime school board member in Springfield. For our students, we need to have healthy, efficient school buildings. Thank you so much.
I'm Mike Griffin, Springfield, Vermont school board member. I'm letting you know about my support of our bond vote to do some work at both Riverside Middle School and the high school. I believe this is the right project to do because we have some immediate projects that we have to do, and we have some other projects that are going to be needed in the very near future. And I'm a fan of getting them done before they become a crisis. And it's the right thing, the right investment for our buildings to be in good condition for a long time to come.
I'm Steve Cohn, principal of Riverside Middle School, here to speak a little bit today about this exciting project that we're about to hopefully undertake in Springfield. I've been at Riverside for nearly 3 decades now, 4 different roles, so I think I have a little history and stuff to go on in terms of my experience here. I'm certainly sensitive to the town and its struggles it's been through economically, but this project for me is really exciting to think about.
So I'm hoping that all of these new renovations will make it more conducive and safer for all of our school community. So that includes our students, our staff, visitors that we have, because we do have a lot of people that come and use our building. And I think it would be a great opportunity for us to provide safety for everybody, proper heating, and new windows to help make sure that the cost of what we're doing is not going to just seep out the windows due to the breeze and the cracks and the flow of air between the building and outside.
Okay, that's that video is available, has been put out on a variety of different platforms. It's available through our website. It's available through Facebook. It's been linked in a bunch of our Twitter accounts, so it's out there for people. At this point, we're going to transition into a little bit more information before we get into the Q&A. And I've already got one question ready to go. We'll get to in just a minute. And I'll have, I think, Mike Davey and Rick Pembroke share. And this, guys, my plan is to share the PowerPoint if that's what you're ready to do.
Correct.
Great. All right, let me get that up and running for you. Oop, we're having getting a little bit of a underwater effect on your microphone there. Yeah, much better, much better.
Can you hear me better now? So just, we're not going to spend too much time on each slide, so it's gonna
Okay,
be.
you just tell me when to move, and I'll move you. Just a sec here, and I'll get it up.
So Mike Davey with EEI. Our team has been working with the Springfield School District for about 2 years, delayed a little bit from COVID. And the video talked a lot about the process, but it started with an energy audit of all 4 buildings. And one of the important questions that we asked the school board and let the numbers tell the story is, are all four of these buildings in the long-term future of the school district? And after looking at the replacement costs of Riverside and the amount of work that does need to be done there, the board came to the conclusion that it makes far more sense to improve the buildings we have than to consolidate and build a larger building, perhaps at another campus or at the high school. So with that being said, there's been many projects at Riverside and the high school that have been known to the district for decades. Windows put in the 70s, pneumatic controls, older boiler, original ventilation units. And so the goal of this project was to solve as many of those problems as possible in an economical manner. And do I control the slides or you will?
I got it, Mike. You just tell me when to go.
All right, next slide. Next slide. Critical things that are in the bond vote. New electrical and fire alarm systems for Riverside and Springfield. Those systems are at end of life at both buildings, and Riverside is 20 years past full life on that system. It's the only system that I've ever seen like it where you pop the breakers out rather than switch the breakers, and there's a complete lack of switching, so it's not a safe system. The Springfield High School ventilation system leads a lot of has a lot of issues that was mentioned in the video. So we're going to replace the old unit vents with ducted rooftop energy recovery units, which will be more efficient, quieter, and ventilate the building per current standards. All the lights will be converted to LED, and high efficiency boilers will be installed at 2 of the schools. The building control system will be upgraded at the high school and the middle school. And we're replacing 60 to 70-year-old windows at Riverside and the high school. If all of those projects are passed in this bond, it will reduce the energy and maintenance costs for those items by $240,000 per year. Next slide. Here's some pictures of some of the older electrical systems and code compliance issues, like the emergency fixtures are plugged in. Those are supposed to be hardwired. And so there's poor lighting in the classrooms and very old switch gear that would all be replaced. Next slide. There's some open junction boxes at Riverside. Next slide. And again, the original switch gear from that more than 70 years old is what's still powering this building. It's very difficult to get parts for any of the components. And so one of the board members mentioned in the video that this is a waiting for a fail situation, and this project would upgrade the entire electrical system. Next slide. Another thing that came up is the windows. At Riverside, it's all single pane windows except for one small section of the school that was renovated. This project would replace all the single pane windows, and it would get rid of the floor to ceiling glass that happens in many portions of the building, which is very energy inefficient. The steel transfers right from the outside of the building to the inside. There's no break on the steel in these windows. So we would add an insulated lower wall in those locations, put in double pane, highly efficient windows, and really improve the look of the school. Next slide. Here's some conditions of the glass floor to ceiling that I had mentioned before. And the top right corner shows air conditions and through the windows and then plywood subpanels. So all that will be replaced with double glazed, highly insulated windows. Next slide. This is sort of a before picture. So this is what that building looks like now. Floor to ceiling glass with some fading yellow block above and below. And then we have a rendering of what it will look like after. Next slide. So we'll use an insulated metal stud construction, fiber cement siding, double pane insulated windows, and we're going to really make that portion of the school look new. And you'll see the glass wall, the glass walkway between the 2 sections of the building will also receive that same upgrade. Next slide. At Springfield High School, we'll similarly upgrade the windows that are original to double pane insulated windows, and then add a sub panel to block off the uninsulated area below the windows right now. Next slide. This is at the high school. So currently the high school has all unit ventilators. Unit ventilators take in outside air and then exhaust them through the corridor. And all of the heating components and fans are all located in the classroom. That was done 60 years ago because it was the cheapest way to put a mechanical system in a school, but it's also the least efficient, noisiest, and most prone to failure. Our proposal is to replace those with ducted energy recovery units that will preheat the outgoing air with that energy recovery wheel you see on the left. So on a 0-degree day, that wheel will take it up to 40 or 50 degrees before we even have to heat it up, just using the energy from within the building. Next slide. The project cost slides, I'm going to hand back over to Rick.
Good evening, Rick Pembroke, Chief Financial Officer for the district. The cost of the project, as you can see, is $10,400,000. We have Efficiency Vermont going to provide us with $45,000 of credits. The majority, if not all of that, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, is as a result of the LED lighting we're going to be putting throughout the 4 buildings. So the operating and capital contributions, $1,300,000. Most of you probably know the board has been putting $500,000, $500,000 in their budget for the last number of years for capital improvements. That was in our budget this year to improve the entryway of the high school. That was the plan back in December when the budget was developed, but when COVID hit, that kind of threw everything off. We banked that money knowing that we were going to have to devote that to a ventilation system, at least at the high school, as well as the other buildings. As part of the process, the 2 elementary buildings were recently renovated, so they're in good shape from a ventilation standpoint. We were able to leverage some Corona relief funds through Efficiency Vermont to deal with the majority, basically all of them, if I'm right, Mike, all of the ventilation issues at the middle school, to the tune of about $450,000. That was all received with grant money through Efficiency Vermont. So I don't want to imply that 45 is all we got. It's just coming in 2 different pockets of money. The other 450,000 we're actually we got awarded a couple weeks ago. The improvements have been completed and we're about to receive that money in. So that's this year's transaction. It doesn't affect this contract, this proposal at all. The other $359,000 that we're looking to contribute is coming from our operating savings. Mike talked about $240,000. We're also going to see, we can identify a few other savings within our maintenance operating budget to generate that cash down payment is what we're calling it. So therefore we only have to borrow $9 million. Next. So this is a small excerpt of a large cash flow analysis that we've done on the project. It shows first year, which is next year, FY22, and I know that the years get a little complicated. We'll actually save $60,000 in cash. Largely, well, not largely, solely because the first year of the bond is strictly an interest payment. We don't have any principal payment on that. The second year is when we'll see the highest payment on this. That'll be a debt service payment of $600,000. We show our operating savings, and then so we will have a $353,000 budget obligation. That'll be the highest tax rate obligation of this project. Would be 2.6 cents on the tax rate. We will work hard in 23 to try to mitigate that again through some other efficiencies in the budget, in the global operating budget. But for the purpose of this calculation, this project would cost us 2.6 cents. Overall, over the 30 years of the project, it averages out to about 1.5 cents on the tax rate that Troy talked about earlier in the video. Average house in Springfield is roughly $130,000. It's roughly $19 on that house for this project over the life. And as Troy talked about earlier too, we're borrowing at today's rates is going to be roughly $2 million in interest savings over the life of the bond. Next, please. This is just a graphical representation, and probably everybody's eyes are as bad as mine. You see there that the debt goes away in fiscal year 43, and you see where from that point on, it's pure savings from the district standpoint. Next, please. Why do we want to do it now? And Mike and Troy and the other board members talked about this a lot. I came to the district, I think, roughly 3 years ago. When I walked in, it was presented to me that we had a $500,000 electrical problem at the middle school that the district had known about for 5 or 6 years, and we just couldn't figure out a way to get it done and to pay for it. One of the nice things about wrapping these things together in a energy conservation project is we can apply the savings we receive towards a debt service that helps make it manageable. Obviously, the low interest rates we talked about, the improvements we're making to the building, should give both of those buildings another 50 years of life out of them. I mean, the useful life of some of the equipment minimum should go 30. But you can see the windows we have now, we got 70, 80 years out of them. So we should be able to get at least 30 to 50 out of the next set. And, we believe the school board is, strongly believes that schools are an integral part of the community. And it's a big reason why people want to come, stay, reside in Springfield. Next slide, please. Questions?
So that time, Rick, I don't know if that was, I'm not sure who was speaking that time, but
Larry just asked if anybody else wanted to say anything before he opened it up to questions.
Got it.
See, mostly shaking no.
Okay. We have some people present here, and Zach, did you say you had some people and had already put some questions on? Questions, Zach? Do you have some?
Do you guys have any questions there in the building?
Do we have a question? You might want to need to come. We have a question.
That one? Oh. Is this close enough?
Yeah, we can. I think we can hear you pretty clearly.
Okay, my name is Ritva Burton, taxpayer in Springfield. I'm just wondering, which of the schools are 60 or 70 years old besides Park Street? I mean, it's older than that. I'm not sure. Riverside isn't that old, is it? High school certainly isn't.
Riverside was built in 1956.
So, 1956 is, what is it, 2020? So yeah, 76, yeah. I forget the date on the high school. I know it's all pneumatic controls and,
Is this 67? Somebody else can help me out there. 67, 66, is that right?
haven't put
I think 67 is right.
to the 70. Yeah.
I'm just going to repeat the questions. It'll probably be easier.
Probably, okay.
The question was the new wood chip boiler at Elm Hill. Why wasn't it installed when those improvements were done? And I will take a stab at it. And if anybody else wants to jump in, they're welcome to. There was one put in, and the system that was put in back in 2009 was a system from Switzerland, and the company's gone out of business. We can't get parts for it. It's been broke down for 3 years straight. And so it was basically, we purchased a lemon. And we don't have, we don't have the ability to fix it anymore. We've been Band-Aiding it for the last couple of years. And it made sense for us to replace that in this project. Of all the pieces of this project, ironically, that has the biggest payback, and the return on that I think is 13 years. The savings we'll have for the cost of that investment. Did anybody else want to answer that, or did I cover it well enough? Any online questions, Zach?
Yeah, sure. Let me pull up the first. We've got a few. So the first is from Conrad Woodbury, and it's, so we pay a lot of money as taxpayers. Why have we let this building deteriorate this much? Some of the things shown are preventative maintenance. Love the propane idea. It's way cleaner and cheaper. So I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in. I can talk a little bit about my understanding of the history around some decision-making, particularly around Riverside, since I came to the district, but I don't know if anyone else would like to speak first. Okay, so here's the story on, so I know that when I started being part of things, this is 2010, 2011, that I think a lot of times the conversations at that particular period for the board, and it's almost none of the people who are here are part of that board. When we got into conflicts between preventative maintenance and potential programming cuts, decisions were often made to not cut the programs and to try to go without some of the preventive maintenance. What I can say is that we've gone a long time now with the adjustment to the $400,000 to $500,000 being put towards capital projects on an annual basis is something we've been doing now for about 7 years. It's been an important part of what we think is, I think you're indicating, which is what we should be doing, preventative maintenance on an ongoing basis. I think there was a former board that learned a very tough lesson about not doing that at the high school, where we had put off for multiple years, or the district as a whole, different superintendents, different boards, had put off maintaining the roof on the same cycle at the high school that they should have, kept kicking the can down the road, and then we ran into a situation where the roof leaked at the high school. That leakage leaked into the gymnasium at the high school. That then leaked through the floor of the gymnasium, the high school, into the art wing. And what we ended up with as a result of not doing the preventative maintenance was a situation where we had to redo the roof. We had to redo the gym floor at SHS. Because we couldn't use the gym floor at SHS for gym classes, we had to move all of our PE courses into the workout rooms where we had bought residential level workout equipment. All that got burnt out as a result of putting more mileage on it than what it was designed to do. And then the water went down into the art wing of the school, and it lifted up asbestos tiles, where we then had to do a bunch of asbestos remediation. So all that was something that happened, we're talking almost 10 years ago now. And I think that was a moment where the district, the board, people said, we can no longer kick preventive maintenance issues down the road. And we've been working hard to put that money into the budget, that $400,000 to $500,000 on an annual basis ever since. Now, in terms of Riverside, I can tell you that Mr. Davey at the beginning of his presentation talked about the really important conversation that led to this proposal, which was, is there a future of Riverside Middle School? And we had treaded water for years as a district on making a decision about Riverside. We knew that we invested in the athletic facilities at Riverside, the gym, the locker rooms, because those were part of district-wide programming and everybody was going to use them. What wasn't clear was, does Riverside Middle School in its current state have a future as a school building? And is it something we want to invest money in, or is it a potential money pit? And that decision has been kind of slowly, we've been trying to deal with. And I credit this board with confronting that choice and looking at having EEI come back with, this is what we think it would cost you to not renovate Riverside and to put Riverside Middle School, attach it to your high school, or do a new project. And they decided, no, we think there is work that can be done at Riverside to bring it up to where we want it to be. And that's part of what this bond is doing all that electrical work that's long overdue, to doing the ventilation work, all these different things that we need to do in these buildings when we've been kicking the can down the road. So we're trying to be responsible and to make up for years worth of not doing the preventative maintenance. But at Riverside in particular, the decision had to be made as to whether or not we thought the building had a future. And this board made that decision.
And Zach, I just want to add that as part of that analysis of keep Riverside or not keep Riverside, the price tag, the estimate wasn't a hard number, but it was a pretty good estimate, was to replace Riverside was going to be somewhere to the tune of about $35 million. So this is a far more efficient way to get up-to-date facilities.
Great.
I think to add on to that same question, I think what we're looking at here with this bond vote is to bring the buildings up to a point where we can maintain them, so we can use the preventative maintenance fund to go back into that preventative maintenance. Other boards in the town have let the building slide to a point where we can't do that without a bond vote. We're at a point where we need to make a decision what we're going to do with these buildings. So this is an important decision for the town.
And of course, that dovetails with the interest rates that are available at this moment that make the need to borrow a cheaper prospect than it would be, than it even was when we did the elementary schools.
Next question.
Oh, Mike, did you want to jump in? Oh, you're muted. Let me see if I can. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, you're good.
I just wanted to add as well that in the last 5 or so years, we have done some preventative maintenance and things. When the board took a look at the overall condition of the district, we had to evaluate what buildings needed what and prioritize those things to try to make sure that we were spending whatever money could be spent, that around $500,000 each year that we were going to be putting into the capital improvements in wise areas. So over that time frame, we've done many upgrades to the high school heating system. It was done in stages. And in this proposal, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Rick, to the last wedge of that pie is to finish the heating system improvements that we've been working on for several years at the high school. We also have worked on improvements to some of the infrastructure at Riverside Middle School as well for the heating side of things. Within this proposal, I consider the lights is maintenance. The lights that are there are working, but we can go to LED and save money, and it's just a smart decision to make now. And same answer goes for the boilers. The boilers are working, but their years of usefulness is getting near. And we believe the time is now to think ahead and make those changes instead of waiting for it to become a crisis. So really a good chunk of this bond is maintenance. It's just some catch up, some future planning because of interest rates it makes sense to do now, and some current needs.
All right.
Next.
I have a next one. I've got a comment. Kevin Anderson said, "I support this project as these schools are critical infrastructure for the town of Springfield. As a retired teacher, I've experienced the conditions described by Bindi Hathorn and Tim Bixby." So, and then I've got Mr. Woodbury again, and there's two. I'm going to flash both things because I think they're combined. The first is okay. So you say only like $20, but every year since I have moved here 5 years ago, the school has always asked for more. Money translation, my tax bill was $1,500. Now is over $3,000. Yes, I renovated. But you're always asking for money. Why? So, I don't know if I mean, globally, I can just say that the, overall, I think we continue to work hard to keep down costs as much as we can. We do appreciate that there are portions of the town that have seen a steady increase in their bills, but I think part of it, you pay a combined tax rate of municipal and school taxes, and that increase is not necessarily solely connected to the school rate. A lot of people in our community do not pay the full rate of what is listed on the website as the tax rate for schools. But most everyone does pay the full municipal rate. So that's one thing. The other thing is our costs do continue to go up. We are a people-heavy enterprise, and particularly health insurance for us continues to be a challenge in terms of containing our health insurance costs.
No other comments to that question, Zach? Do you have others?
Zach, I'd have one.
Okay, go ahead.
Zach, and maybe you can help me with this conversation a little bit, but I'm trying to remember. I think the last 2 years, our tax rate for the school portion did go up. The year before that, was it 3 years ago that it was flat? And then I think we had a year that was actually went down a hair. But we worked very hard for several years to try to make that as flat as possible. And as of the last few years, especially because of the health insurance impact, like you said, Zach, it's just put us over the top.
Well, we had 3 consecutive years that technically, and I'll acknowledge technically, were tax reductions. The one that's flat was just by it was 1/100th of a cent type of thing. But we had multiple years in there where we had been able to have some tax reduction. That has not been the case for the last 2, but we did have a stretch where we did. So, and there are, I think in general, costs for us, again, our 80% of our budgets most of the time are personnel connected, and so it's people that we're paying for. And that can be expensive in terms of being able to maintain proper staffing. But health insurance is the big driver that makes it challenging for us to control some of our costs.
All right, Zach, any other questions?
Let's see. We got another one from Mr. Woodbury. Question: if you get the money, are you going to stay on top of the maintenance, or are you going to repeat history because what we heard is programs are more important? Great question. I think that's one that I would open to the board.
I'll jump in on that one. So last year, the board, in conjunction with the district, developed a strategic plan. So step 5 of the strategic plan is focused around the physical buildings and the maintenance, and that's to maintain them and make them a good learning environment for our students. So that as that is set forth in our strategic plan for the next 5 years, the board is committed to keeping us to task on that.
All right, that was Mr. Woodbury's second question, so we're gonna go back to audience member for another question.
Great.
That's fine.
Are extremely high compared to the area. The per student cost in Springfield is almost the highest in the state. So every year, you know, we read this in the newspapers, and everybody says, "Oh, don't you live in Springfield, high tax town in the state?" I said, "How do you do it?" And I said, "Well, it's getting harder and harder every year. Retirement income, what is it called? The state sends you money. That's peanuts compared to the whole bill. It's like it doesn't help a retired couple that's trying to hang on to their home. So I think any increase in the budget, I don't care if it's $9 million or $5 million, is this the right thing to do at this time? You know, with all the other uncertainty, number of students is down every single year. Where are these additional students going to come to be housed in these school buildings that are going to be all upgraded, especially Riverside? I mean, I can see, you know, lighting fixed, you know, that kind of stuff, that makes sense. Windows, that makes sense. But to go whole hog and do all this because the interest rate is low, it just doesn't seem, I don't think I can support a increase. That's my opinion.
Rick, I don't know if you want to.
So I'm going to try. I'm going to try to summarize, and if I don't get it right, she'll throw something at me. But
I think we got it. I think we got it. Right?
Oh, good.
Were you able to hear that?
I think we got the vast majority of it.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, great.
I think one of the things, and I'll let other people speak in just a second. I think one of the things is that what's key is that the combined tax rate in Springfield is quite high. I believe the municipal tax rate, the town services tax rate, is the highest in the state of Vermont. We, as a school district, are in the upper third in terms of set tax rates. But like I said before, 2/3 of our community do not actually pay our school tax rate. The Vermont system is set up to help communities like ours by basically shifting some of our costs to wealthier communities. And in particular, around people who have fixed incomes, the Vermont system around education creates, basically defrays part of the cost around that. There's two different groups of people. There's a lot of people in our community, even though they're homeowners, they pay based on their income. And people who are on fixed incomes very often are part of a program called the Super Circuit Breaker, where actually you are capped at what you can pay in combined taxes to both the town and to the schools. But when you see your town municipal tax rate, you're paying that full bill. When you see your school tax rate, most people are only paying a portion of that bill.
Yeah, because I don't know if you could hear, but that was one of her comments, is that the income sensitivity payment is peanuts. The reason why you're feeling as little as you are is that income sensitivity is only attributed to the school portion.
Right, I realize.
Rick, when your laptop's not centered on you, we can't clearly hear you from the microphone.
Okay, I was just explaining part of her comment was that the income sensitivity payment is very minor compared to her tax bill. And that's just as you talked about, that's a result of that payment is only towards the school portion. And that's why she's seeing, a bigger tax bill or she's not experiencing a bigger rebate, is because of the school or the town side of that tax bill is 100% responsibility of the taxpayer.
Just one other thing to point out that was in the comments there, that there was a comment about the declining enrollment in the schools and how could we update school buildings we currently have. As a board, we considered that, and looking at the declining enrollment numbers, there isn't the decline isn't steep enough that we can close a school altogether and consolidate into 3 buildings instead of 4. Based on where we are, we have to maintain the 4 buildings or expand one to deal with the student population. So I think that's a worthwhile comment to address from the audience there at Park Street.
Yeah, and another component of that was how high Springfield's education spending per equalized pupil is, i.e. cost per pupil. So she was hoping someone could speak to that.
I could comment on that, but before I do, I'll comment on the first part of the conversation as well. And I too share the concern about raising taxes in Springfield, and myself and many people I know struggle to pay our taxes and maintain our own homes because of the tax level we're paying. And I've really thought long and hard about it, and I've seen what happens in our district and in our town when we decide to not spend the money, and we see our roads deteriorate, we see our buildings deteriorate, and it's like, to me, forgive me if this isn't a good way to put it, but it's like we're laying down to die and letting the world go on without us. And I feel I support this, even though I know I'm already feeling the pinch on my taxes. I support spending this money because, number one, I think it's somewhere around, and Rick, tell me if I'm wrong, but 28 to 30 years or so, it will all pay for itself in energy and efficiency savings. That's a long time, though. I know that's not going to help the people who got to pay for that next year and the year after and the year after that. But I also know we're trying to attract people to our town and increase our population and make Springfield a community that people want to move to. And the town's been working hard in improving a lot of things around town. We're approving additional votes, requests for paving to try to improve upon our town for our citizens and to attract people in. And I think this is an important step to improve upon our schools. So when people are trying to decide where they're going to move when they're coming to Vermont from the big cities and all around the country, and they want to go online or drive through our town, they see buildings that they would be excited or proud to have their children attend, instead of buildings that have cracked and broken windows and look like they haven't had any upkeep in years. So to me, it's an important part to turn our town around, is to do this step. And now that I said all that, Rick, tell me again, what was that question you just had? Because I was going to comment on that.
Cost per pupil.
Gotcha. I will just say I've watched that closely and am concerned with the cost per pupil number as well. I know a good chunk of that is the original bond vote that we went through, and that drives that up. And so will this bond vote. But I think the work is worthwhile and that it needs to be done.
Yeah. The other thing I'll mention is just in terms of the Vermont State School funding formula, the way it works. Again, it benefits communities like ours, where effectively right now for every dollar of investment that Springfield taxpayers put into the school, the state, through the state fund and other communities, sends us $3. And so there is a amazing return on investment in terms of what the community of Springfield does to pay for their schools versus what they are able to receive in services as a result of the formula for the state of Vermont.
Looks like we have another comment or question here from the audience, so we're going to do that.
I know we get money from the state, but it's still taxpayer money. Somebody's taxes are paying for this, whether it's Springfield or somebody else in the state of Vermont. I mean, you look at any listing of most affordable states to live in, Vermont ain't one of them. So I don't like that argument of, we only have to pay so much because somebody else is paying the rest of it. My comment.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Don't want to cut this short if there's something that somebody wants to say. Anything? So we're going to repeat this informational meeting on December 3rd at 7 p.m. Oh, yes, Zach?
I actually have some more comments.
Oh, you do? I'm sorry. I didn't know that. Okay.
From Shauna Smith, Shauna says, I can say from personal experience, I went to school in Riverside in Springfield High School. This is something that has been needed since I went to school. Why has it been put off so long? So from my perspective, I think some of what I answered before, it was trying, especially at Riverside, it was trying to make a decision as to what was the future of Riverside Middle School, and that it makes sense to invest in Riverside. And I think the decision has been made that yes, it does. But I don't know if anyone else wants to speak to that.
And I think we've answered that question. Next one, please.
Let's see. Mr. Woodbury just with a comment saying, I do agree that these repairs is clearly needed. Martha Tarbell with just the statistic on the homestead tax education rate is $1.77, but the municipal rate is $2.03. And Mr. Woodbury, what is the total student number in Springfield? Rick, do you have, and I apologize for putting you on the spot, because I don't know if I've got that statistic in front of me right as I sit here.
Yeah, I don't have the exact statistic, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,100.
Yep. Okay. That's it. That's what I've got, Mr. Kraft, on this side of the equation.
Thank you again. I want to give everybody who's online or here one last chance. We are going to repeat this informational meeting at 7 p.m. on December 3rd. Voting takes place on December 8th, and if people want to get absentee ballots, they should contact the town office. Otherwise, I'm going to declare this public information session adjourned. Thank you all for participating. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All these are